Leanne Tiernan was a 16-year-old who was abducted and went missing on the 26th of November 2000, while returning from a Christmas shopping trip in Leeds, West Yorkshire. The missing person inquiry for Tiernan that followed was one of the largest in the history of West Yorkshire Police, involving the search of around 1,750 buildings, underwater searches of 32 drainage wells, the draining of a 2-mile section of a canal and the halting of household waste collections. She was last seen alive at 4:50 p.m. on the 26th of November 2000, when she and her friend, 15-year-old Sarah Whitehouse, returned to Bramley by bus after a shopping trip to Leeds city centre. The girls parted company at Horfley Lane, and Whitehouse last saw her setting off along an unlit path through an area of wooded wasteland known as Horfley Gill. When Whitehouse arrived home, she telephoned Tiernan's home and was surprised to find she was not there. At 5:20 p.m., Tiernan's mother rang her mobile phone to find out where she was, but the phone rang out for some time and then cut off. When she rang it again, it was cut off after 4 rings. At 7 p.m., she rang the police and reported her daughter as a missing person. More than 1,400 house-to-house inquiries were conducted, and 800 houses along her probable route, designated by the police as Red Route, were searched, along with 800 sheds, garages and outbuildings and 150 commercial premises within a half-mile radius of Horfley Gill. DNA samples were taken from 140 men interviewed by the police in connection with the inquiry, and 12 search warrants were executed at various addresses in Leeds. The West Yorkshire Police Underwater Search Unit carried out a search of a 3-mile section of the Leeds and Liverpool Canal between Spring Garden Lock and Bramley Falls, 2 miles of which was drained to a depth of 1 metre. The unit also searched 32 drain shafts in the area, and Yorkshire Water was called in to help locate disused and abandoned drains and wells. Collections of household waste were halted temporarily to allow police to search all bins in the area for evidence. The inquiry also received assistance from British Waterways, British Transport Police, the Ministry of Defence's Aerial Reconnaissance Department, Calder Valley Search and Rescue Team, Interpol and the Police National Search Centre, a joint police and military training facility. On the 3rd of December 2000, police staged a reconstruction of the girls' last movements, reenacted by Sarah Whitehouse and Tiernan's older sister Michelle, in the hope of jogging the memory of potential witnesses about Leanne's movements. Detectives also sent text messages to Tiernan's mobile phone, which was now switched off, but had briefly been activated on the 27th of November 2000. A local businessman offered a £10,000 reward for information leading to her safe return, and supermarket chain Iceland printed her picture and details on milk cartons sold at its stores nationwide. There were unconfirmed reports of sightings as far away as Doncaster and Blackpool, but after 9 months, there had been no positive sightings. Tiernan's boyfriend, care assistant Wayne Keeley, 19, pleaded with her to get in touch. On the 4th of December 2000, police released an E-Fit facial composite of a man who had been seen walking a dog in the Horfley Gill area shortly before Tiernan disappeared. He was described as being 5 feet 8 inches tall and of stocky build with a round, reddish face that may possibly be scarred. Wearing a black woolen hat, a 3/4 length waterproof jacket and dirty jeans. On the 20th of August 2001, Tiernan's body was found by Mark Bisson, who was walking his 2 dogs in Lindley Woods, North Yorkshire, 100 yards, 91 metres, from where another murder victim, Yvonne Fitz, had been discovered buried in 1992. Tiernan was identified from her fingerprints on the 22nd of August 2001, and Superintendent Gregg announced that the inquiry had now become a murder investigation, codenamed Operation Conifer. 15. Tiernan's body had been wrapped inside 9 green plastic bin bags secured with twine, with a black bin bag secured around her head with a leather dog collar, then placed inside a floral patterned duvet cover. Tiernan's Ellis coat and black boots were not found. Plastic cable ties had been used as a ligature to strangle her, and more ties had been used to bind her hands. A dark-colored scarf was also wrapped around her neck. Her hair was still tied in a ponytail with the same band and hair clips that she had been wearing when she disappeared. The state of decomposition of Tiernan's body led some forensic experts to believe that after her death she had been kept in cold storage or a freezer up until a few weeks before the body was found, in part to avoid detection and in part as a trophy. A cryobiology expert was called in to examine the microstructure of Tiernan's cardiac tissue, and concluded that the body could have been kept frozen for some time, taking into account the air temperatures for the months between her disappearance and the discovery of the body. Police made a public appeal for anyone who might have been in Lindley Woods recently or had information about others who regularly visited the area to come forward and contact police. John Taylor, the 27th of August 1956, Leeds, West Riding of Yorkshire, was a parcel delivery worker for Parcel Force, and lived on the same housing estate as Tiernan, within a mile of where she was last seen alive. He was known locally as the Pet Man, as he kept a number of dogs and ferrets and sold pet food, and was also known to be a poacher. His only previous conviction was for theft of a suit when he was 15 years old, and he was considered by his neighbors to be trustworthy and ordinary. Following their appeal for information, Taylor's name was given to the police separately by two former girlfriends of Taylor who had met him through Lonely Hearts columns, both saying that he had driven past the woods in their company and boasted of poaching them regularly. John Taylor, born on the 27th of August 1956, Leeds, West Riding of Yorkshire, was a parcel delivery worker for Parcel Force, and lived on the same housing estate as Tiernan, within a mile of where she was last seen alive. He was known locally as the Pet Man, as he kept a number of dogs and ferrets and sold pet food, and was also known to be a poacher. His only previous conviction was for theft of a suit when he was 15 years old, and he was considered by his neighbors to be trustworthy and ordinary. Following their appeal for information, Taylor's name was given to the police separately by two former girlfriends of Taylor who had met him through Lonely Hearts columns, both saying that he had driven past the woods in their company and boasted of poaching them regularly. As police began to conduct thorough inquiries into Taylor's background, they discovered that he was a frequent user of Lonely Hearts advertisements. Through his telephone records they identified the women he had contacted in this way and began to interview them. One woman who had dated Taylor disclosed that Taylor told her he liked tying women up and locking them in a cupboard. Another said that Taylor had told her that he had a fetish for bondage, whips and ties, and said that he wanted to tie up her daughter with cable ties and have sexual intercourse with her. A former girlfriend, who had briefly lived with Taylor, told police that she had often visited Lindley Woods with him while they were dating, and that she had eventually broke off the relationship with him because of his bondage fetish and the feeling that she was being raped. When asked by police to describe how Taylor would tie her, she described his practice of securing a plastic cable tie around each of her wrists, then tying her hands behind her back by using a third cable tie to link them. This was exactly how Tiernan had been found. She also said that Taylor kept a bundle of the cable ties in a drawer next to his bed. Two other women also said that Taylor enjoyed bondage during sex, and had bound their breasts and hands with cable ties. Taylor, who lived alone after his wife had divorced him in 1996, was arrested on suspicion of murder on the 16th of October 2001. Police immediately sealed off his house and gardens and a patch of wasteland to the rear of the property. The gardens were then excavated and the property, including 3 large chest freezers, subjected to a rigorous examination over a period of 10 days. When interviewed by police, Taylor said that he had picked Tiernan up by the scarf around her neck, at which point she had died, and claimed that her death was an accident. He said he had panicked and hidden her body in Lindley Woods. The police and prosecution maintained that he cable-tied her hands behind her back in the bedroom in preparation for rape, and then used a cable tie as a ligature to murder her when her blindfold slipped and she saw his face. When asked why he had abducted Tiernan, he replied, "I have no idea. When police challenged his version of taking the body to Lindley Woods soon after the murder, he claimed that he had first kept the body hidden underneath pallets in his back garden, and then stored her inside his sofa. On the 15th of February 2002, Taylor appeared before Mr. Justice Poole at Leeds Crown Court and entered a plea of guilty with respect to the abduction of Leanne Tiernan. He was not asked to enter a plea on the charge of murder, pending a separate Newton hearing, and was remanded into custody awaiting the trial. On the 8th of July 2002, the first day of the trial, he entered a plea of guilty with respect to the murder of Leanne Tiernan. He was sentenced the same day.